Hi, this is Penny. I'm from the Cascade branch of Kent District Library, and you might have been watching us on our Thursday afternoon programs where Sarah, Nanette, and I have been book talking books available to check out right now on Hoopla. For the summer, for our Summer Wonder program, we're doing book talks for adults every Tuesday night at 6:30. So welcome. You managed to get to our first one. So tonight we've got myself, Sarah, and Nanette all here together tonight to kick off Summer Wonder for us. And I'm going to throw this over to Nanette right now because she's got some prizes to tell you about. Nanette?
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be in your living room with you tonight. So we decided this year to make it a little bit more fun. We would love to give away some prizes to our favorite patrons of Kent District Library. So if you comment about a book that you have read and enjoyed in our live chat that's happening as we talk about our books, you will be entered to win a prize if your name is randomly drawn. And next week, if you join us again, we will let you know who the winner is and what it is that you won. But I can tell you we're going to be drawing for puzzles and paint by number sets and some yard games and some cookbooks. So we would love to hear from you. And because your recommendations are just as valuable as ours are. So keep those chats coming and engage with us with any questions. We are really grateful to be with you tonight. So, Sarah, would you like to start off tonight?
I want you to know that Nanette is picking out the prizes, and she has the best taste of anyone I know. So they are going to be amazing. Yeah, well, we're going to start with Sarah. Sarah, what did you read from Hoopla this week?
I read The Radium Girls by Kate Moore, which is a book that I actually read probably a couple of years ago, but it stuck with me. I was pleased to find it again on Hoopla and started reading through it again this afternoon. Couldn't get all the way through it, but remembered why I liked it. And it was a real page turner. It's a true story. So if you read it in print, it would be found in our nonfiction history section, but it's also found on Hoopla in both ebook and audiobook format. It begins with a referral to history. In 1898, the Curies discovered a beautiful white substance that would glow blue in the dark and called it radium. Within about 20 years, radium became a big business, especially if it was discovered that it could destroy cancerous tumors. It was thought, well, if it can cure cancerous tumors, it's certainly a very healthy thing. So companies began capitalizing on this, billing it as a miracle cure for all sorts of troubles and developing products to sell. Face creams, toothpaste, radium butter, not all of them actually contained radium. But if you had the means, you could purchase a radium-lined drinking goblet that would, you put water in it, it would make your water radioactive, you could drink it, and it was recommended 5 to 7 glasses per day for good health. Yeah, so obviously we know a lot more now than we did then. A couple of companies based in New Jersey and Illinois also developed a radioactive paint that was to be used for luminescent clocks, watches, and military instruments, which was becoming even more crucially important because it was 1917 and America was entering World War I. So this business of painting dials was very fine, delicate work. So the companies hired young women and girls, usually from poor families, to do this job. And it was seen as a really great opportunity for these young women because not only was the pay about 3 times what a normal factory job would be, but the work was more exciting, more glamorous, less grueling. But also you had the side benefit of when you were at work, you get covered with this radioactive dust. So if you wore your best dress to work to get it covered with this dust, you could then wear it to the dance that night and steal the show by glowing in the dark as you danced. You could even paint your teeth and your nails with this paint. Yeah, I know it's really horrifying to think about this now. The brushes that they used were very fine. The bristles spread easily. So the technique they used was something called lip pointing, where they put the brush in their mouth to clean it off and also to sharpen those bristles to get a really fine point to paint these dials. So in addition to being covered with dust, they're also ingesting it. And it wasn't long, obviously, before these young women started showing up at the doctors and dentist offices with terrible problems with their teeth, their jaws, even their joints. And despite their best efforts, the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong. Every treatment they tried for what they thought was some kind of infection just seemed to make it worse instead of better. It took a few years for enough cases to start showing up and for them to be connected that it was that all these young women had worked for the Radium Company. And upon investigation to learn that these companies had actually been warned that their practices were likely to lead to disaster, but had ignored these warnings and continued to try to cover up and discount what these women were experiencing, even as they continued their practices. So this book reads, it's almost like a true crime novel. It's nonfiction, but it's a real page turner. I couldn't put it down. I still want to get back to it and finish it again. It tells the story of the investigation and the workers' fight for their justice a lot through their own words in diaries, letters, and court testimonies. And I really felt the outrage and the tragedy of these promising young lives being cut short with their stories being discounted. And also learning how, based on what happened at these companies, we now have better workplace regulations and, maybe some of the good that's come out of this tragedy. So The Radium Girls by Kate Moore, and I'm looking forward to getting back to it this evening. So that's my book.
Thanks, Annette. Oh, frightening, but it sounds like a good read.
Yeah.
Nanette, what do you got for us tonight?
So I chose something a little bit fluffier than that. That sounds like an absolutely fabulous book, Sarah. I have not read that, although I've seen it on display in the library. It sounds really good. I chose something a little bit fluffier because that's about what my brain can handle these days. I chose the psychological thriller because I know a lot of our viewers like thrillers. And I chose The Daughter-in-Law by Nina Manning. I had read and talked about Sally Hepworth's mother-in-law book a few weeks ago, and that was something that I really enjoyed as well, also a psychological thriller. But the two books really don't have much in common at all. This tells the story of a possessive mother named Annie who is now an empty nester. She had one child, and she raised him alone. And we don't really know anything about the boy father. The son's name is Ben, and he is now grown up and left the nest. He too was raised in a remote coastal cottage, and had not a whole lot of contact with other people. He was homeschooled, but he had it sounds from Annie's description of their life growing up that he had a very loving relationship with his mother. And as he grows, he is a musician, and he decides that he's gonna go out on his own. And when he goes out on his own, he's on a gig and he meets the love of his life. They have an absolutely whirlwind relationship, and within 5 months he has fallen in love, is married, and now has a wife that's 5 months pregnant. And he decides to introduce his new wife to his mother. And that is when the plot thickens.
Always.
So he takes Daisy, his new wife, to meet Annie, his mother, at Christmas. And Annie does not like Daisy. It's obvious because there is kind of a little incident when they first meet where you know that something is going to be afoot between the two. So they leave early, even though Christmas is Annie's favorite time of year, to get back so Daisy can teach her fitness class and they can get back to their lives. And within a few weeks of meeting Annie, Ben, Annie's son, gets a gig in another part of the country. So he is going to be leaving his pregnant wife and going to travel with his band as this opportunity of a lifetime has presented itself. And right before he's going to leave, their roommate, Eve, suddenly dies in a tragic accident. And so Daisy, the wife and soon-to-be mother of his child, is now without a home and soon to be without her new husband as he goes to travel. She has nothing and no one to turn to except Annie. So that is where I am going to leave you because there are a lot of twists and turns in this book. Some of them that I could predict and some that I could not predict. I find that these kind of fluffier books that are a little bit more non-committal are perfect kinds of reads to take to the beach or to read on your deck on a warm day, or even just I choose to read in the morning so that I don't have the problem of falling asleep after reading these scary books. But it's a good nighttime read as well. So that is The Daughter-in-Law, and it is by Nina Manning. This is her debut novel. There's another book also called The Daughter-in-Law by a different author, but this is the debut novel of Nina Manning. And that is available in both audio and also ebook format from Hoopla.
I like you reading scary books in the morning, Nanette. I think that's a practice I will start.
And if I've been looking away and typing, it's because I am answering people's comments now. So if you'd like to comment on Facebook or on YouTube, wherever you're watching our platform right now, feel free to ask us questions. I'll try to take a peek at them before we shut down and answer anything that we have. So that seemed like a nice light book from Nanette, which we could all use right now. I'm going to take you way in the other direction right now with my book. With everything that's been happening right now as a middle-aged 55-year-old white woman of privilege, big surprise, I feel like I do not know very much about racism. I don't know everything I should know about racism. I would like to find out. As a librarian, it's a curse of the job. When I don't know that much about something, I look to a book. So in talking about what are the best books, what are the books to help me understand what's going on right now, I was recommended to a book by Ibram Kendi, How to Be an Anti-Racist. And you'll find that one actually available right now from Overdrive. There might be a little wait. But I went to Hoopla because we're focusing on Hoopla and books that we can check out now, and found his earlier work, which appealed to my librarian heart too, because you have to go back from the beginning and start there. So I read his book, Stamped from the Beginning, by Ibram Kendi. And it is a history of racism, not just in America, but worldwide. And Kendi talks about racism and slavery going back as far as recorded time has gone back, to talk about how it was justified, how we learned that different people were lesser people. And he kind of dispels, he does a massive amount of research. I want to say that at the front. This is a very well-researched historical nonfiction book. It actually won the American Book Award when it came out. And in his foreword, he talks about, at that time, which was, I think, 2016, about the deaths that had occurred of Black citizens by police officers that was going on then, and how that sparked in him a desire to research this and to find out what he didn't know. And as a Black man, he said he himself was also in some ways racist, and he had to overcome this. So it was just a fascinating book, and he just teaches you the history and so much that I didn't know. For example, the word slave comes from the word Slav, because the Greeks and Aristotle justified slavery and enslaving people for the Greeks' benefit of their society by saying that the people who were lighter skinned than they are, like the Slavs, or darker skinned than they were, like the Africans, are lesser than. They're designed to do our work, to do our dirty work. And it wasn't that they found them and feared them and were ignorant. It's that they needed this stuff done and they didn't want to do it. So Aristotle created a system that would justify using other human beings for your gain. And Kendi talks about how this is justified throughout history. And he also talks about the fact that racism isn't a binary concept. It's not either you're racist or you're not racist. He throws in different kinds of racism, which I found fascinating and saw myself in, I have to admit. He says there are separatists, people that believe it's stamped from the beginning, as the title of the book says, that this race of people, these people, either because they're cursed or because of nature, they are lesser, they are different. people who are a different color. That's a separationist, racist philosophy. But he also said that there is an assimilationist, racist philosophy that says that you are lesser than me because you've had all these horrible things happen to you. You've been enslaved, you've been discriminated against, you've been spit upon, and this has made you lesser than. And if you could only come and be part of us and what we're doing, then you would be assimilated and you would be equal to me. But the point that Kendi is making is that we are all equal people now. That there are brilliant and funny and wise Black people, and there are brilliant and funny and wise white people, and there are and selfish white people and greedy and selfish Black people, and we are just people, no matter our color or race. We're people, and I am not an expert. I will even admit to you that I haven't even finished this book, and I am white and don't know how this feels, but it feels very good to launch on this kind of adventure where I can find out what I don't know and unlearn some things and learn some things. So if you have a mind who wants to do something like that now, I would go with Ibram Kendi, and I'm reading Stamped from the Beginning, available on audiobook through Hoopla. So that was a heavier one, and I see no comment.
Sounds like a really fabulous. It sounds like a fabulous choice for right now.
It's a very fascinating read. It's not a page turner, Nanette. It's very different from that. I mean, you are taking time, and he introduces different characters all throughout history. And you look at racism through their eyes, starting from Cotton Mather and taking it all the way through Angela, whose last name I forget right now, but I saw her speak at Fountain Street. And just what racism is about and where it came from. So yes.
I just started his other book this morning, and I know what you mean. He had me from the very first sentence of the prologue. It was so compelling and well written and interesting and forced a lot of introspection for me too. And I think these are really important titles for right now. I'm really grateful that you found something so good that our patrons can reach out and grab right now.
Excellent. And we also on our KDL webpage have other recommendations if you want to read more about this from other authors. We have a whole book list. So check that out if you're so inclined. I want to let you know before we go that we are going to be live streaming these book talks every Tuesday night at 6:30. And if you are interested in live streaming adult programs, Sarah's going to tell you about what we've got going tomorrow.
During the summer, we have a lineup called Summer Wonder Wednesdays, which will be programs for adults at this time, 6:30 to 7:30. Tomorrow's program features gardening tips with Lions and Rabbits, which is a local organization that houses about 120 local visual artists and functions as a gallery, education center, and event space in the Creston Business District. So they'll be doing a presentation tomorrow on gardening tips. So please log on.
And Nanette, do you want to remind us one more time about prizes?
We want to hear from you. So if you are out there listening right now, we would love to hear what a book that was impactful for you, maybe during the last few months, or a book that's spoken to you and you've been thinking of lately. So throw out some great titles. And those of you that watch the live stream might look to the chat to see if you can see some great recommendations from our listeners, because we know that you have, we can't read everything. So we rely on you to recommend stuff too. So
we wish we could. So and also remember that Summer Wonder has begun. And that's for adults too. So more prizes available that way. So sign up online for Summer Wonder, kdl.org/summer.
Leave a comment and you're entered into to the random drawing. And we'll let you know next week.
Yay! So at least 2 of us will be back next week with more book picks. Please leave us your comments. Good night, everybody. Stay safe.